Software as a service is a revolutionary concept. It's been in the industry for 10 or so years, and it describes a scenario where end users and organizations purchase their applications over the internet as a service. So moving away from the conventional enterprise delivery that was propagated by some of the current vendors in the industry, where you buy a big chunk of software, you have to install it and maintain it, upgrade it, probably have a bunch of implementation resources around it. Software as a service is actually delivered via a multi-tenant architecture, meaning that it has a single architecture that's delivered across a large community of users, and it's also on a subscription basis. So it's paid for just like you pay for your mobile phone or your cable subscription. So as a definition, it primarily is all about fundamentally transforming the vendor-customer relationship. Previously, you had vendors giving their software away or selling their software to end users and companies and not incurring any risk, not necessarily caring whether or not those customers used the software or used the products, just basically selling them a big package and then milking maintenance revenues over time. With software as a service and the subscription-based model, you actually can derive value, and there's a much more healthy and risk-sharing environment between the vendor and the customer. Suddenly now, the customer needs to be successful. They need to be happy with the product, otherwise they can switch and turn it off much more easily than with software. I think you're going to see a fundamental shift in the way that vendors develop applications. What you're going to see is many more web-native applications coming to the marketplace. The whole notion of being built from the ground up for a web-based deployment is critical. Taking an existing client-based application that's designed in the client-server world and screen scraping it and sticking it onto a web interface simply doesn't work. So that's one consideration. The other consideration is that the way that people buy applications is fundamentally going to change around the subscription model that we discussed, around the whole idea that there's a degree of flexibility in the decision-making process, because you can actually try before you buy or deploy incrementally and be able to see benefit from a product before doing a much larger scale deployment. So for example, you can go off and test the deployment of a CRM software as a service solution, try it out in a department of 50 or 100 users, and once you demonstrate value, you implement it successfully, you can then do a much broader based deployment at a fraction of the cost, risk, and complexity. The way they operate internally will change fundamentally. What software as a service allows IT departments to do is focus on innovation and not infrastructure. The Gartner Group talked about a really pretty startling statistic that 8 out of every $10 spent on IT is wasted. Effectively, it's spent on keeping the lights on maintaining existing architecture, rather than driving innovation. With software as a service, you can now free up IT resources, whether it's monetary or humans or developers, what have you, that can now focus on core business applications and core strategic initiatives rather than worrying about keeping the plumbing working. Well, it fundamentally changes the dynamic between the vendor and the customer. What you have now is a vendor sharing risk with the customer rather than a vendor flogging a product on a customer. So with the subscription-based service around multi-tenancy, customers can now have a lot more choice in their selection of applications, whether it's ERP or CRM or HR applications. I just think again, it's incremental benefits. Using software as a service, you can adopt Web 2.0 solutions in your business slowly and incrementally and make sure that they make sense for that business function. I think the consciousness needs to change within organizations, and specifically in IT organizations, going away from technology for technology's sake to technology for strategic sake to solve business problems. So Web 2.0 is a fantastic thing, and there's some great advances around user interfaces, but to just deploy a Web 2.0 application for the sake of it doesn't make any sense. If there's a great Web 2.0 interface for the CRM application that they want to deploy, well, then that makes a lot more business sense, and then that would be more widely deployed and widely accepted. It's very important to understand the requirements of your business, whatever the application happens to be, but also take a good look at the vendor themselves. Make sure that the financial viability is there. Are they a publicly listed company? Do they have strong finances? How's their performance been recently? Look at their customer base. Probably more importantly, talk to their customers. Make sure that they're demonstrating success in the marketplace and that that's being echoed through the customers. It's important, especially in this day and age, to get that sort of viral marketing and that sort of referral-based sell going, because a lot of the marketing spin that has happened in sort of the previous incarnations of the software world hasn't had a lot of credibility. You also need to make sure that you believe in the long-term roadmap and the vision of that vendor, and that they have strategic viability in the marketplace, and that you feel confident to put your data and to trust your business in with this vendor for the long term.